Hello, Packer fans, wherever you may be. It's time for another edition of the Pack Attack Cast, and it is a Victory Monday. So excited to share a Victory Monday with you. Sorry for the delay in posting this, but I was at the game in Arizona and had to travel back, and we had some flight delays. Thank you, government shutdown, for that one. But we made it back very late last night, actually, technically, very late this morning. So I wanted to get my thoughts together. I wanted to do a second watch of the game because watching it from the stands, you don't get as much of the nuance, even though it's more fun, that you get from watching it on TV or on the Coaches All 22. So I wanted to spend some time going through the tape, and we're going to talk about what I saw from this game, both in person and from the All 22 coaching video. So before we do that, I want to talk about the fact that we are at 11,040 subs. We'd love to get to 12,000 before the Monday night game against the Eagles. Hit that sub button if you can. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your support. Well, let's first talk about the overall reaction to this win. A win is a win. 2025 is a crazy year of upsets and parity. Any given week, a struggling team can beat an elite team. We've seen this over and over and over again. And the Cardinals are so close to being a quality team, and they have now lost 5 games in a row by a total of 13 points. That's 2.6 points per loss. So every single game the Cardinals have played, they go down to the wire every time, and you got to give them credit for that. They almost beat the Colts last week. They almost beat the Packers this week. Those are 2 elite teams in the NFL. So when you look at the win-loss record for the Cardinals, it really doesn't show the whole story. They are just a little bit away from being one of the high-quality teams in the NFL. So if you're a Cardinal fan, and I met a lot of them on Sunday, hang tight. I think if they stay the course, this team might be a contender in the NFC West next year. They played that well, not just against the Packers, but also against the Colts and against other opponents that they played, including the 49ers. So there's no question that the Cardinals are not a quality team, regardless of what their record says. And you could see this in this game because they were very competitive from the beginning. They were exchanging scores back and forth with the Packers. It was a dominant offensive game for the Cardinals, in my opinion. And the Packers really had to rely on their defense, some special teams play. Not very often we say that as Packer fans. And also the tenacity of the Packers to stay in this game. Or it could have gotten ugly because the Cardinals were playing very well. All right, so first thing I want to do is talk about what went right, aka game balls, for this game. And first on my list is Packer fans. I cannot tell you what an amazing experience it was for me and the people that went with me to the game on Sunday. Okay? Let me start out by going to the airport. We went to the airport, Packers fans everywhere. Now, I was going out of Denver International to go to Phoenix because I'm located in Colorado. And so that's a major hub. So there was Packers fans maybe coming from Green Bay. There was Packers fans coming from the South. There was Packer fans coming from Colorado. But the stadium, the airport was full of Packer fans. Like everywhere you looked, green and gold. It was amazing. Okay? Then we got onto the plane. And there was Packers fans, of course, in the plane because we were going from Denver to Phoenix right before the game. So there was probably, I want to say, 15 to 20 Packer fans on my flight alone. And we had Packer fan chants going. We had takeoff, Pack Go songs. We had landing, Go Pack Go chants. And this was just in the airplane to get to Phoenix. And then we drive to the airport. and or sorry, we drive to the stadium and in Phoenix, and it looks like it's Lambeau Field. 80% of the people tailgating are Packers fans. It's amazing. It's just like going to Lambeau, which I did week 1 against the Lions. It was very similar to that. Hardcore Packer fans having their brats, having their beer, enjoying being a Packer community. And it was like 80% of the people in the parking lot were Packers fans. Okay? Then we get over to the stadium to get into the game, and security is going very slow letting people in. So what do Packer fans do? We chant, "Go Pack, go!" All types of conversations. Bears still suck. We're just going through the litany of Packerism while we're waiting to get into the game. At one point, there was even a rendition of "Roll Out the Barrel" in the line waiting to get into the game. That is how many Packer fans showed up to this game. I would say it was at least 60%, maybe 70% Packer fans at this game. And you could feel it. And then we got into the stands. And in my section, it was probably 80% Packer fans. And every time the Packers made a big play or they needed to stop, the Packers fans were screaming so loud. And if you watched the TV commentary, it almost felt like it was a Packers game. And I noticed that when I watched the rebroadcast, because you could hear the Packer chants very evidently in the replay of the game. So I have to have a feeling that all those Packer fans had an impact in this game, because the Packers struggled for the first half of the game until we got that 61-yard field goal at the end of the first half. It was a struggle bus for the Packers. But those Packer fans were yelling and screaming and backing their team 100%. It was beautiful. So my number 1 game ball goes to Packer fans. I don't know if the Packers fans could have won that game if it wasn't for so much support coming from their fans in the stadium itself. I'm biased, of course, because I was one of those people screaming their head off. I could barely talk last night because I was so hoarse from the game. But I do believe that really plays a factor when the Packers go on the road. It'll be very interesting to see how many Packer fans make it to the Steeler game on Sunday night. If it wasn't a work night, I probably would have made a way to go because it's going to be a historic game with Aaron Rodgers facing the Packers. But I think they're going to come in and take over that place. Packer fans are going to be hot and heavy in Pittsburgh. You know, Pittsburgh is a very quick trip for lots of the people in the Midwest. So I expect a lot of Packer fans to be there on Sunday night. And it might make the difference, just like it made the difference this past Sunday. Number 2, special teams. It's not very often that I could say special teams were a key part of a game in the good way. Usually it's a horrible situation. But we have to give a shout out to the special teams in this game. We had a record distance field goal kick. We had punts that were consistently around 60 yards flipping the field. We had overall solid coverage on the special teams despite early struggles in the first half. So really you have to say the Packers have done a big improvement in the special teams, at least in this one game. To have a backup kicker come in and set your record for longest kicks, that says something about how your special teams played in this game. Now, it is important to note that before the debacles that were week 2 and week 4, the Packers did not want to put starters in on special teams. After those 2 games, the Packers adjusted, and now there are multiple starters, especially offensive linemen, playing on special teams. And I think that is a big part of the reason that special teams is a lot better. I have to believe, and hindsight is always 2020, but if the Packers had those players on special teams from the start of the season, the Packers could be undefeated right now. But That's water under the bridge, so to speak. Okay, number 3 game ball, pass rush. Micah Parsons and crew had a game that really kept the Packers in this game despite their offensive struggles in the first half. Micah Parsons had 10 pressures, 3 sacks, and had many quarterback hits. Rashawn Gary also had a critical sack strip that was a game changer in this game. Enigbari played some solid plays. Quay Walker was a major force in the pass rush in this game. So the Packers were clearly bringing the pass rush against the Cardinals, and it really might have been the difference in the game. A couple of those sacks were at critical times that really changed the game. And you can't undercut that at all. Run defense was very critical in this game. So the Packers had a bend but don't break run defense in this game. They knew the Cardinals weren't going to be a big threat by running the ball, so they really focused on getting to the quarterback. But the defense held up pretty well against the run. There were a couple situations where you're like, oh, it's 2nd and 2 because they had a good run and it was a little frustrating. But the truth of the matter was, overall, they had a bend but don't break run defense, and they didn't let the Cardinals get any big plays out of the running game. So eventually, the Cardinals really focused on the run to a lesser extent in the second half of the game while they were trying to put the Packers away. And I think a lot of that was frustration because they couldn't get any big plays out of the running game. Number 5, Jordan Love played with toughness and tenacity in this game. He is truly developing into the leader that you would expect for a 3-year starter in the NFL. He is poised. He was able to wheel and deal consistently in this game. He took some hard hits in this game, and he bounced right back up and said, let's go, baby. Now, I know 100% Jordan Love today is probably sitting in an ice bath because he took a lot of hits in that game, but he persevered, he overcame, and he led his team to a victory. So we have to give Jordan Love lots of credit. Now, everything I said about the Cardinals, I still think that this game was far closer than it had to be. And there's a lot of things that the Packers need to clean up after this game. Number 1, pass coverage. This was the biggest negative, and it nearly cost the game. And this is where the Cardinals really made their hay. The pass rush got to the Cardinals consistently, but the pass coverage did not hold up consistently. The Cardinals had completions on 3rd and 23, 3rd and 14. They were constantly getting 3rd and long conversions. And that was a big issue in this game. It was really funny watching the broadcast again, or for the first time today. They actually caught Jeff Hafley using some expletives after that big 3rd and 23 conversion for the Cardinals. He was very clearly frustrated with the fact that the Cardinals got a conversion on that down. Because you give a pass rush like the Packers a 3rd and 23, there should be no opportunity for the Cardinals to complete a pass down the play and get a conversion. Nate Hobbs was a big part of that game. Now, I watched the tape again, and he was beat consistently. He was beaten by multiple players throughout the course of the game. Now, I did see from the All-22 tape that there could have been situations where he was expecting some support and it did not get there. So it's really up to the coaches to grade Nate Hobbs' performance. I personally give him a D performance for this game, but maybe the coaches look at his performance and say, oh, it was a C, we can just work on a few things. But I think the Packers really need to revisit ways to improve their pass coverage, because against elite teams, we will lose if the pass coverage is the way it was on Sunday. And another thing, who was supposed to be covering McBride? McBride killed the Packers drive after drive, and he was wide open many times. Now, my theory for this, looking at the all 22, is typically either Quay Walker or Cooper would be covering McBride. And they should be able to do this consistently. However, I think Quay Walker was so focused on getting to the quarterback, and I think that was part of the defensive design for this week, that they let McBride run free way too many times, or McBride ended up again against Nate Hobbs, and Nate Hobbs doesn't have the physicality to tackle McBride. McBride is a huge, honking tight end with great physicality. In fact, one of his touchdowns, he just bounces right off of Nate Hobbs while he tries to tackle him and goes in for the run. So we really need to clean this up. The pass coverage, not only against wide receivers, but also against tight ends. Because if we go up against a team that has an elite tight end like McBride in the playoffs, that is not going to help us at all. Number 2 thing that went wrong in this game, travel. Planes were delayed. There was canceled walkthroughs. The team got in late on Saturday, which means they didn't get in some rehab time. There was a lot of things that really upset the apple cart for the Packers in this game. And the Packers started out slow. They were missing some players that possibly could have come back if they had that rehab. We'll never know the answer. So this was really unfortunate to me. I think the Green Bay Packers will take a look at what happened this week and say we can't let this happen again. We're going to try to travel earlier to the games to make sure we get there in plenty of time. If that means they leave early on Saturday morning to get to their game, maybe they even travel on a Friday night, I think the Packers should really consider looking at their travel plans and adding in extra time so that if there is another delay like that where they lost 6 hours on the tarmac, it isn't something that really messes up the team and their opportunities, because they really came out flat in this game. And I think a lot of that was the fact that they had this travel delay. Next up, Josh Jacobs on a pitch count. Josh Jacobs, and Matt LaFleur said this, Josh Jacobs was on a pitch count in the first half because he was coming off of a injury and an illness, and they didn't want to overextend him. Now, in the second half, I think the Packers said, we're down by big numbers. Josh Jacobs is going to play more, and he played a lot more in the second half. But in the first half, I wonder how many drives would have succeeded that failed because Josh Jacobs was not in the lineup. So we're going to have to watch that carefully. Hopefully he'll be back to 100% by Sunday night. Number 4, injuries. Injuries are slowly getting better, but I think if the Cardinals and the Packers both were at 100% injury-free, this game would have been a 10-point win for the Packers at least. So there's no question that lingering injuries are not impacting the performance of the Green Bay Packers. Last up, this is something that I was really hesitant to include in this summary, play calling. Okay? There was a mixed bag here. I love the fact that Jordan Love talked Matt LaFleur into going for it on 4th and 2 at the end of the game, but I think Matt LaFleur should have made that decision without Jordan Love saying, man, we got to go. Okay? So I loved the end result and the fact that Matt LaFleur listened to Jordan Love and said, hey, I think we should go for it. And I think Matt LaFleur had they called a timeout, so Matt LaFleur had some time to think about it. And he said, you know what? We're this late in the game, we're going to go for it. But there was a lot of confusing play calling in this game, especially in the first half. They were calling plays that I thought were completely unnecessary. End arounds. They were trying to do some funky things to generate running yards because Josh Jacobs wasn't in the game. I think they should have just, in those situations, if they didn't have Josh Jacobs, they might have been more successful with a quick passing game to try to get those yards instead of trying to scheme up a running game because Josh Jacobs wasn't in the game. So we'll never know how much of that was because Josh Jacobs was limited. But I do think that Matt LaFleur, and he'll probably admit it when he looks at the tape, he left a couple plays on the field that could have been big plays. A lot of people aren't giving Matt LaFleur enough credit for that big first drive where they made the long ball for Romeo Dobbs, and it was just maybe 6 inches away from being a touchdown. It was that close. We don't know if there was a problem with the route. We don't know if there was a problem with the pass. We don't know if there was a problem with the play call. But I like the aggressive nature of that. And that was just a really close play. If they had made that touchdown throw, I think it would have changed the entire chemistry of the game. And you want your coach to be aggressive that way. So those are my thoughts for this game. Again, a win is a win. I'm excited we got the win. It was a really fun experience because the Packer fans on the road are always amazing and fun. That being said, we've got to look at some things to get better before this game against the Steelers. The Steelers, if we play like we played against the Cardinals, we will probably lose to Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers. And I do not want to see that happen. So hopefully Green Bay is going to get healthier over the next couple days. They're going to take a look at the tape. They're going to find some things to get better at the things the Cardinals exploited, and we can see a better performance on Sunday night. But again, a win is a win. And right now, we're still first in the NFC North. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens tonight, Tampa Bay or Detroit. Who's going to win that game? Both of them losing helps the Packers, but at the end of the day, I would rather have a one-game lead against the Lions over being the first seed in the NFC right now. Winning the division is job number one for the Green Bay Packers. So I'm rooting for the Tampa Bay Bucks tonight. Hopefully they will come off with a win. Now we're going to turn our attention to Sunday Night Football against the Steelers. Early line is Packers -3.5. Sounds about right given how they played against a common opponent. They both recently played the Bengals. The Packers had a close but solid win against the Bengals, and the Steelers lost to the Bengals. You put those together since they both played basically the same team, and I think -3.5 for the Packers is about right in this game, but they have a lot of work to do over the week. So for the rest of the week, we're going to talk about what the Packers can do to improve and how they could get ready for Sunday Night Football against Aaron Rodgers. So stay tuned, give us a sub, and we'll see you tomorrow with another edition of Pack Attack Cast. As always, go Pack Go, and I want to give a personal shout out to all those Packer fans that I met in Arizona. It was a lot of fun, and there's no better tribe to be with on the earth than the Green Bay Packer tribe. So as always, and with the enthusiasm that we saw in that game on Sunday, go Pack Go. We'll see you tomorrow.